Hello and welcome to episode 106 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, the 4th of July, 2019. So a very happy Independence Day to all of my American neighbors, and I hope all of my fellow Canadians had a wonderful Canada Day long weekend. Canada Day was on Monday, July 1st, and it celebrates when our original four colonies, Upper and Lower Canada, which are now Ontario and Quebec, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, came together in confederation to become the Dominion of Canada. And July 1st used to be known as Dominion Day until 1982, when Canada became a fully independent country from the British Empire. And so it's been called Canada Day ever since. So there, a little history lesson for you. It's not just a knitting podcast, you know. Anyway, how's everyone been? Hope you've had a good week. This last week has really gone fast. Although it's interesting, we were up at the cabin for the long weekend, and even though we were up there a couple of weeks ago for a longer period of time, this weekend seemed really long, in a good way. But yeah, we were only up there from Friday night till Monday morning, but it seemed like a lot longer. And then the rest of this week has just disappeared on me. But yeah, my name's Carol, if you don't know that already. You can find me as Knitsnpurls on Ravelry. And a very special hello to any new viewers, and welcome back to any returning viewers. Thanks for tuning in again. So yeah, let's start with news about our Shop the Stash Cal. Shop the Stash Knit Along Crochet Along. By stash, that is anything acquired prior to 2019. And that can be yarn or fiber, and knit or crochet anything. And it can include works in progress or very, UFOs, hibernating projects. Chat about it in the chatter thread, and when you're finished your project, you can post it in the FO thread. One post per person. Just keep adding to your post as you complete items, and at the end of August I will draw from both threads. And I'm really excited to announce another prize. Aussie Maria very generously offered up one of her patterns as prize. So I have added a link to her designer page on Ravelry in the first post in the chatter thread. So be sure to go and check that out. So thanks again, Maria, for your very, very generous offer. So, I was doing up show notes for this week. Yes, I actually have show notes this week. And I realized that basically everything I'm going to show you is basically what I showed you last week. And what kept going through my mind is second verse, same as the first. I don't know if any of you remember, I think it was a camp song, Henry VIII. And or we would say Henry VIII, and you would finish the whole song, and then you'd go second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder and a little bit worse, and then you would sing it louder until you're basically yelling the song. So that was what kept going through my head, and so that's why I've named that the title of this episode, in case you're wondering where that came from. So, if you watched last week, I am a little further in each project. It's just I have the same 3 projects to talk about. So first up are my plain vanilla socks that I am knitting out of this yarn from it's from 3 Irish girls. It's called Adorn Luxe, and it is from Stephen B's store in Minneapolis. It's an exclusive colorway that I got when I visited their store last summer. And it is in the Electric Peacock colorway. So nice, beautiful, bright colors. You can see the balls getting smaller. That's a good sign. Last week I showed you that I had the first sock done. And then, which is basically, well, it's not basically, it is a 64 stitch plain vanilla sock with a yarn over short row heel. And I knitted on a 2mm needle, in case you're interested. That's my standard go-to for a sort of regular fingering weight yarn. And I worked on the second sock in the car on the way to and from the cabin, and did the heel when I got, oh no, I did half the heel in the car and I finished it off at home. So you can see what is this with basically? I have finished the heel and done a couple of rows, so now I'm ready to head down the foot when I have time, when I need just a plain kind of mindless project. So, and I've been keeping that pair in my maple leaf bag in honor, of course, of Canada Day. So there you go. Second project, you can probably guess, are my Cliff Walk socks by Helen Stewart, which is the second sock, I believe, in the second Handmade Sock Society collection, made from Dream in Color Smooshy with Cashmere in the Slippery Trail colorway, which I just thought was very clever. Slippery Trail for Cliff Walk socks. So blues and greens and browns and beiges. And I finished the first sock. There it goes. It has a really simple lace pattern, almost looks like cables in a way, the way that it's constructed. And so yeah, I finished sock number 1, and I have cast on and done about half the ribbing on sock number 2. So again, not a really complicated pattern, very intuitive. They knit up quite quickly. The yarn's a little bit thicker than the yarn I've been using for my sock design samples. So these feel like they just fly off the needles compared to those ones. Yeah, liking those too. I left those at home when I went away. I took, obviously, the electric peacock socks, and then I took my Edinburgh shawl by Helen Stewart also. And that's a 3-color fingering weight shawl, features a lot of garter stitch and stripes and lace. And I am knitting that from 3 colors of Madeline Tosh Euro sock. Let's see, they're over here beside me. So there's Ao and Brienne of Tarth Battles a Bear. So that's like a charcoal gray with some other colors in there. And then Toner Cartridge, just a very tonal gray. So I actually had a fair bit of time to work on this while I was away, and was, again, just an easy project to do with, you know, while I was talking to other people and such. So it's an asymmetrical triangular shawl. So I think when I showed it to you last week, I think I had one more repeat of this lace pattern to do. And then you can see I've moved on from there. So it's coming along pretty well. Still really, really loving this one. I am anxious to see it, you know, all worked up. I think it's one that I will definitely wear a lot. I have a nice red coat and, of course, a black coat. They'll all go with that. So, yeah, very happy with those projects. So, other than growing a little bit, there's not much different. And then I know last week I talked about how I was going to start Cemetery Road by Greg Iles. Have that on the Kindle, and I did start it up at the cabin, and I'm loving it. Cameron is reading it too. He's ahead of me, so every time I open my Kindle, because our accounts, we have one account that we use, it keeps saying, oh, the last page read is such and such. Do you want to go there? And I have to put cancel, because if I say yes, I'll end up where he's at. He's about, I think, around 60-something% through, and I think I'm about 40-ish% through. So it's quite funny because he'll occasionally ask me, so what part are you at? Because he wants to talk about it, but he doesn't want to give anything away. So it is set in Bienville, Mississippi. Pretty sure Mississippi is the state. Right along the Mississippi River, and a sort of a father figure in the main character's life was, he believes, murdered. Because he's an archaeologist and was digging around at the site of a new paper mill that is going to be constructed in the town. And if he finds what he thinks he's going to, which are signs of an ancient settlement, there are a lot of people that stand to lose if the construction of the paper mill is shut down. So there's a lot of intrigue, a couple of deaths so far, a romantic relationship, just all these ingredients that make for a really good book. Greg Iles is definitely one of my favorite authors, both my husband's and mine. So we were excited to see he had a new book and are enjoying it a lot. So as I mentioned, we spent the long weekend up at the cabin. My sister that lives in Toronto, Jacqueline, she flew out just for the weekend. So she arrived Friday, sort of late morning. My oldest sister picked her up along with her little grandson so she could show him off. So she had a short time to see her before dropping her off at another sister's. So Allison and her husband Stan, they came up also, and just Cameron and I. Another sister was supposed to come, but her husband was sick, and she's a teacher, and she had finished, I guess, officially on Friday, but had a lot of organizing she wanted to do in her classroom, and she worked on that over the weekend. So it was just the 5 of us, plus my mom, that ended up being at the cabin. So Friday was Legion week, and so the Legion in the town close to where our cabin is and where my mom lives, they were having like a free hamburger dinner. So my sister Allison's actually a member of that Legion, and so we all gathered there for dinner and sat with various friends that we know from town. So we had a nice dinner and then headed out to the cabins. And then I guess Saturday morning we all kind of got busy on various jobs. I helped cut grass again, so I have to tell you, there were 2 of us on the push mowers, 1 on the riding mower, and was so much faster and easier than what we faced a couple of weeks ago. So it went a lot faster. And then the next day, Cameron and my brother-in-law Stan kind of finished off a couple of areas, which I don't know, took maybe an hour or so. So it was good to get it all kind of tidied up again. And what a difference 2 weeks makes. When I was there a couple of weeks ago, the lilacs were in full bloom. They were just gorgeous. And now all the flowers are completely dried up. You can't, from a distance, even see where they were. So yeah, it was surprising just how much it had changed just since we were there last. And yeah, on Sunday, I have a cousin that lives about an hour or so north of town. So she and her husband came down for a visit, and we had a wiener roast with them. And then after they left, the 5 of us, my mom had gone back into town, so the 5 of us took a walk down to the lake, and actually all the way to the end of the lake. And you know, if I had realized we were going to do that, I debated whether to take my camera or not, and I opted to leave it at home. And then I wish I'd had it, because the lake was just beautiful. The first day we were there, we had some rain, but then Sunday and Monday were both really nice. And it just looked beautiful out there. And as we were walking along, there was an eagle up in the tree on the roadside, not too far from us. So I didn't have my camera, but I'm stealing some pictures from my sister, and I'm going to put a few in here just because it really was really, really lovely. And so then, yeah, we just left, basically first thing Monday morning, wanted to beat the holiday traffic. And Jacqueline was going to be staying with us overnight Monday, and I was going to take her to the airport on Tuesday, but my sister, Janine, who wasn't able to make it for the weekend, came and picked her up and had her overnight instead, and took her to the airport. So but we had her, we got to visit all weekend, so that gave them a chance to catch up. So she got to see all the sisters in various amounts. Very, very quick trip out for her. Oh, so my hair, I just thought of it now. I just couldn't stand it anymore, and unfortunately my regular hairdresser is away for a couple of weeks, so I couldn't get her to do it. So I went in, I had someone else do it. It's okay, it's just a little bit different than usual, and I tucked it back behind my ears, which I never do. But so if you think I look a little bit different this week, that's why. I think what else? Oh yes, I'm celebrating. I did my full 30 days of my classical stretch, and I kept on going, so I'm up to day 35 in a row, so feeling good about that. Years ago I had propped my iPad up in front of the TV while I had episodes on and recorded them onto there so I could take them with me. And so I did that a couple weeks ago when I went, and I did it this time too, and just went into my grandma's old cabin and did my workouts there. So I'm really, really pleased to be sticking to that and sticking to my Weight Watchers. Lost a few pounds, feeling awesome. And one more exciting thing is we're going to see Paul McCartney on Saturday night. Feels like ages ago. Well, it was ages ago that we got the tickets, and it's kind of been just put out of my mind. But yeah, it's here. So my sister Anna Marie and her husband Doug and Cameron and I are going to go in and have dinner, and then head into Vancouver to go see Paul McCartney on Saturday. So very, very much looking forward to that. In other news, it's been confirmed that we will be attending my husband's work cruise in the fall. So this is a cruise that they put on for their customers every 2 years. The customers earn their way towards it, and some staff go to act as hosts. And so we've been lucky enough to go on, I kind of lost count how many, but we weren't sure if we're going this year, but we are. And so that's in October, and it begins in Athens and ends in Venice, and we'll be on the same ship that we were on for Cameron's 25-year employee cruise that we took last fall. So the ship will be familiar. We have been to Athens before, and we were in Venice and Dubrovnik the last cruise. Or sorry, we've been to Athens, yes, we've been to Athens before on a different trip. We were in Venice and Dubrovnik this past trip. So those 3 ports will be familiar. The rest is all brand new. So kind of excited about it now that I know it's for real, for sure. So that's something else to look forward to. I think that's it. My something good for this week is homemade bread. So on Canada Day, the senior center that in my mom's town, they always have a yard sale, a bake sale, and a fundraiser raffle thing. And so we popped in at that on our way out of town on Monday morning, and I picked up a package of multigrain fresh baked rolls. Oh, and they're so good. They're just nothing like homemade bread. It reminds me of when we were kids. My grandma used to make her own bread up at the cabin, and once or twice a summer she would let us kids, she'd give us a hunk of dough, and we could play with this dough as long as we wanted. Practically, we would shape it into all sorts of different things, and then she'd kind of finally say, okay, I've got my bread ready to go, you know, make your final decision. And so we'd shape it into whatever we wanted it to be. Sometimes we'd make just a little loaf. Sometimes I can remember making like a face out of it, and you put like the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and then by the time it all rose and baked, it was not recognizable as a face. But she just let us do that. So it'd be kind of late afternoon by the time it was done, and she'd bring it over, and then she'd always tell us not to have too much so we wouldn't spoil our supper. So whenever I have homemade bread, kind of reminds me of that. So that's my something good. That's it. Thanks for tuning in this week. Another short one, but I'm sure everyone's busy with all the various holidays and summer starting, so it's probably just as well you can fit in a short episode, hopefully into your busy times. So take care until I see you again next week. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.